session has been very exciting, interesting. Although I also felt as the moderator that we fell into the trap of what we are criticizing the book for. We are saying it is biased, is provocative, is unfair, it doesn't represent the reality on the ground. But I think we have also been very unfair and critical, partly because from the reactions, some large majority of us have not read the book. The book says, just in summary so that it doesn't repeat some of those, it says that the problems of data and its quality is found in Africa, in many developing countries, and in developed countries. It is also found in the IMF and the World Bank. Secondly, it says there is a fundamental problem of coverage of what you include in these statistics, especially when it comes to income or poverty or things like health inequality and so forth. The book says, informal sector, for example, we all agree that it is a major problem when it comes to coverage of our indicators and statistics. The book says, yes, there are a lot of frameworks that are used, like MDGE, MGDs, and many others, including the National Statistical Framework. It raises these points, but it says because of the challenges on the ground, we sometimes depart from these frameworks. We don't carry them to their logical conclusion. So he's very critical of the IMF and the World Bank as well. So I think in all fairness to him, we should go beyond just Africa, because some of these points are valid. And he is actually saying, as consumers of data, we should also be critical of some of this data. As producers of the statistics, we should also always put forward the limitations and continuously improve on our methodology. These are some of the key points and salient points of the book. But I also acknowledge and accept some of the key points that have been made both around the panel and from the floor. That one, the methodological rigor of the book could have been better. Two, that the coverage, particularly the historicity, in order to recognize the progress that has been made in the last few decades, should have been also sufficiently highlighted. Three, that some degree of comparative analysis with other regions, including the developed countries, would have shown that you are not just targeting Africa in order to set it up against the donors and other countries. And I think that is the weakness of the book, in the sense that it failed to do that comparative analysis. Otherwise, I think the value of this book is that it was intended, and I think it is achieving the goal of provoking discussions, encouraging those who have more information to come forward and write it and share it with the rest of us. And it is also inviting and drawing both the donors and governments to recognize that if you're really going to make effective policies and monitor them sufficiently, then you need real-time data. And to get that real-time data, you need to invest in the production of this data and its frequency. I think those key messages are coming through the book, and I don't think many will disagree with those. But I'll give the professor to make 2 minutes intervention, and then the president. I think if members of the panel agrees, really I don't think we should detain the audience anymore, but maybe we should give the president of the ASSD to sum up the intervention from this angle. I'm sorry we have run out of time. I tried to be fair to you and to the author. Thank you.
Thank you again, Chairman, and thanks again for the very many extremely enlightening comments and responses from the audience here today. I would like to stress that I think that when, as some of the air which was raised by the Chair, when the dust settles and my book is reread, I think you'll find that in many ways we are on the same side. That indeed one of the things I would like to do is to invite statistical offices to reassert ownership of the statistical agenda, to reassert the ownership of the data as disseminated by the World Bank and the IMF, which is often from the consumer community taken as ready-made facts. And we have to think about the constraints of the supply of those. And I think that, for instance, there is an opportunity here for the African Development Bank to seize a vacuum, because I think a lot of the reporting which has been done on metadata has not been done well enough by those institutions that have been tasked with it. IMF and the World Bank has been mentioned, but also that some of the critical work done by scholars has not been critical enough, and not asking the simple questions of a journalist: how good is this observation? Who made this observation? Was there any reason to think that this observation was biased? Now, I should say that many of you have criticized me for only visiting 8 countries and only securing responses from 34 countries in my book. I must remind you that I was, and still am, quite a young academic, and this was part of my PhD research, funded meagerly by painting houses in Norway during summer. So please bear with me when I do say that I've done my best. And when you think about this, on what kind of scale should I be measured? I must remind you that in the scholarly communities which I am addressing, and this is published, this book is unique in the fact that I did leave my desk to conduct my economic analysis. And that is one of the things that I hope that contributes in scholarly work to reconnect academic users and statistical offices. And I think, when the dust settles, I hope we can take that forward a little bit. I said I'm only managed to get the response of 34 countries. In your response, was it 27 on 48, and IMF has 54, and so it's an invitation. And I like very much the response and the spirit from Guinea, who says, this is a scholarly field. I haven't developed and found out, I haven't reinvented dynamite or somehow found the truth, and I'm certainly no messiah. But it's one argument in a debate not taken properly across and with the participants of academics, of international organizations and statistical offices at the same time. Of course, the invitation is there to test many of the untested hypotheses that have been done here. Was my analysis biased and so forth? Will others find other things? And so forth. And there is a real invitation. One of the things that I really, when I conducted my interviews, was the lack of institutional history and sometimes the difficult task of a document historian when actually writing the history of this statistical office. It is true, there's a lot of tacit knowledge sitting here, sitting in this room, and it's on you to deliver that information in a digestible and analytical manner, which can then present value to present generations and future generations of statisticians here and scholars in the whole world. And I hope we can unite in that going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, moderator, for giving me an opportunity to just say one or two things. I think, first of all, really, we should all recognize and accept that there are certain things in the book that are truthful. The problem I think we have is the title, which is sensational. That is what is the problem. But also at the same time, I think the book provides us an opportunity as statisticians to reassert ourselves and go back to the desk and do a little bit more and be more vigilant and be able to see and who do we allow to come into our homes. That is the point. And therefore, I think the question here is that once the dust has settled, which I think what was in the air is now sitting on the floor, we are probably on the same slate, and we should be able to proceed and forget about this really, debate that has been there, to be able to sit down and rework our numbers and ensure that what we want or what we have put in our strategies to improve statistical issues in our countries actually is done, so that we do not allow what we have seen in the last 1 year in these criticisms can be avoided, if we can be more assertive and don't allow ourselves to be visited as, in some cases, a situation where people are saying, no, they never actually saw Professor Morton come into their office. So I think, going forward, really, I think the thing is that I think let us set ourselves as statisticians and do what is required to provide the necessary information. On the bank side, we will continue to provide support and to work with you to be able to continue reviewing and making assessments that will inform decision makers, that will inform other scholars that are also looking for similar studies in this area. Thank you.